Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, and yes, he is back. Alistair McKenzie, how are you?
Yeah, good. Very happy to be back. Very jealous of you actually being able to attend some games over the Christmas period. But yeah, I'm feeling nice and relaxed after a few days off, and just a little bit disappointed that we didn't get the win tonight, I suppose.
Yeah, the question of tonight, I think, is disappointed because Lazio didn't get 3 points, or happy because you left San Siro with 1 point, which didn't happen in the last year, for example. I don't know, Alistair, what's your thought?
Well, I think the context of it kind of changes that a bit, in that if we'd gone to San Siro and played Inter when they were in the middle of that very long unbeaten run that they started the season with, then you probably would have said that a point's a good result. But because recently they've been struggling a bit, getting beaten by Udinese, getting taken to penalties by Pordenone in the Coppa Italia, so they've kind of shown their weakness recently. And given the way Lazio played, particularly in the second half, I think we had an opportunity there to take the 3 points. And I think you could tell from the way that Inzaghi made his substitutions in the second half that he was chasing 3 points. He definitely wasn't happy to settle with a draw. Obviously, with Roma dropping points today as well as an opportunity to catch up with them. So I think on the basis of that, it's really it's a disappointment not to get the win more than being satisfied with it.
I agree. I thought Lazio played much better than Inter. In the first half, didn't have that many chances. In the second half, Lazio was really, really dangerous. And it's a shame Felipe Anderson have a incredible chance that he missed badly, unfortunately. Lukaku, when he came in, was really, really dangerous. Um, but in the last 10-15 minutes, Inter had a couple of chances. We were talking before starting this episode about the last sub because they were saying that Immobile was supposed to come out to give a chance to Nani. Instead, Inzaghi at the last second change and brought out Milinkovic-Savic, who for me was playing really well and was giving that balance to the squad that obviously with him coming out and Lazio playing with Nani, Immobile and Felipe Anderson, the team didn't have. Obviously, Lazio was more dangerous with that, but I don't know. Maybe we allowed too many chances to Inter, and maybe with Milinkovic-Savic, he's the type of player who can decide the match on his own. So taking him out is always, I don't know, dangerous in a certain way.
Yeah, I think it was probably an example of the fact that Inzaghi's not really had too many opportunities this season to actually have all these number 10s available to him, Alberto, Anderson and Nani. And clearly he's still, like you say, he's still kind of searching to find the right balance. And it was an extremely attacking lineup that we ended up with at the end of the game. But like you say, Inter kind of got back into it and had the chance of their own towards the end. I suppose the only thing I was thinking at the time was perhaps in terms of looking for a balance in kind of 3-4-2-1 shape. That if you're taking out Milinkovic-Savic, you've got Lucas Leiva and Marco Parolo, who are two players who can do a lot of running and do defensive work in the centre midfield. So perhaps he thought leaving them there would give a bit more security. And Ciro Immobile is the only natural striker left and a guy who can win the game for you. Like you say, Milinkovic-Savic is also a guy who can win a game in an instant as well. But I think he was just basically trying to front load with as many fresh attacking players as he could. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, bringing on Lukaku, Nani, and Anderson off the bench in the second half, it goes to show that once we do have these guys all fit again, we have a fairly impressive bench, and in terms of attacking options. Obviously, it didn't work out tonight, but I think as time goes on and Inzaghi knows how best to kind of fit them all into the same team, that will become a real kind of danger.
Yeah, it didn't work today, but we were really close. So it was good. And in the beginning of the second half, I felt for the first time this year that Immobile and Luis Alberto were out of sync. They were missing some passes between them, and it's it's the moment of the match you say, okay, let's bring someone in because today is the wrong night for Luis Alberto. And luckily, we had Felipe Anderson who came in, and we know the talent of Felipe Anderson. It's good that he started immediately playing really well. Felipe created some chances, etc. So it's good when you have all those options there. And even Nani, to be honest, came in and played decent. Of course, he didn't have that much time, but it was good to see him performing like that. So uh, it's good finally to have all those options. Yes, probably a striker is missing, but I think that at the moment Lazio have plenty of options. Sorry, in front.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I said after the game. I just put out a tweet with a few of my thoughts about the game, and one of them was basically that it's time for Anderson to actually start getting more minutes. I think we've now kind of got past the point of him being slowly reintegrated into the squad after his injury, and from my perspective, I'd like to see him starting games now. I think he's looked really lively. He's still maybe not quite as sharp as we'd like him, and maybe in a couple of weeks or so he would have finished that chance. But he's definitely kind of provided a spark that Alberto's not really been able to provide in the first half of that game. And yeah, I'd like to see him back in the team more regularly. And I think from what we've seen so far, there's really promising signs that his relationship with Immobile could be really, really prolific. And like you say, if Alberto's connections with Immobile are starting to go off a bit, then I think it's probably the time to put Anderson in there in his place and start rotating them a bit more.
Yep, yeah, I agree. We have the first comments. Moses Alabi, sad of course, because we lost 2 points. Ramiel Gendi, 2 points dropped. Happy with the way we play, sad about the result. De Vrij has been great. Bosses the defense. Marusic is not good. Need to be benched and Basta needs to play. Shall we talk about De Vrij? Another incredible performance of
He
the
was brilliant.
Dutch player.
Yeah, he was phenomenal tonight. You barely noticed that Mauro Icardi was on the pitch, and you're talking about the top scorer in the league, one of the best strikers in Italy, if not Europe. And yeah, De Vrij just had him in his pocket. It was a really impressive performance from him. But I think the whole defence did pretty well tonight, and Bastos has come in for a hard time on this podcast before, but I think he deserves credit. I think he had a decent game tonight, as did Stefan Radu. So, Inter were fairly restricted in terms of what they threatened with. Strakosha produced a couple of good saves, but he wasn't overly threatened throughout the 90 minutes. But yeah, I think De Vrij's, his performance is the one that really stands out, just because of the way that you basically didn't notice Icardi was on the pitch half the time.
Yes, but let's not forget that Inter and Lazio are two of the teams that scores more in Serie A. The fact that Inter didn't score tonight, it's an important thing. It tells you how well Lazio defense played, because they had Perisic, Icardi, Candreva, have a lot of players, dangerous players. I think that you have to give a lot of credit to Lazio defense, and this season De Vrij for me has been by far the best defender in Serie A. Without any injury, he's playing all the match constantly with no problems, and you can see how his confidence is, and how uh, he's the leader of the defense. And yeah, today again Icardi didn't pretty much play for me, so that was great. And Bastos already against Fiorentina played really well in Coppa Italia. I was impressed by
Yeah.
his performance. So you see, as we said, um, he needed a little bit of rest, a little bit of feel, a little bit of competition, and he immediately improved, which is really good.
Yeah, and with the Vrij, I think it's a relief as well, because when a player goes through such a serious operation like he did and needed such a long time to recover from it, you're never really sure if you're going to get the same player back at the other side of it. But he's come back stronger, I'd say, if anything, than he was before. And yeah, this we've spoken before about how this system playing in a back three suits him really well. Playing in the middle of that back three, I think it's the perfect role for him, really.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, I mean, I suppose the only slightly worrying thing is you kind of wish that, well, you kind of hope that as few people as possible are realizing how good he's playing, because obviously the contract situation still hasn't been resolved, and it's January in 2 days, so we're at that stage that we hoped we wouldn't get to when we were talking about this back in May. Probably we were still talking about this. So but yeah, it's no great surprise that we've ended up here, but I just really hope the club can convince him that this is the best place for him.
Yeah, and I don't know what he's feeling, but really, this is the best place for him. He has still room to improve. He's a leader of the team, and Lazio give him the chance, especially if he keep playing for Lazio, to play all the competition. Lazio is close to the Champions League, and so I probably believe if he goes to Juventus, for example, he won't be a starter all the match, because this is the philosophy Juventus have. At Lazio, he's playing all the matches, so we'll see what happens. It looks like the latest is that he asked a little bit more to think about the offer Lazio made him, so we're going to see what's going to happen. There are rumors that Inter is interested in him, but I don't know. Let's see.
And
Ramel, yeah, go on.
I was just going to say it's hard because Lazio are never going to be able to offer the highest wages, so it really comes down to him being happy with his role in the team, where the team's going, and the kind of the project he's a part of. I hate that word project, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I almost kind of think, I wonder if he wishes he had another year on his contract so that he could see what this team can achieve this season, and not be under such immediate pressure to make a decision. Because it's still, in December, it's still very hard to say where this Lazio team's going to end up. It's been a very promising start to the season, but he might still not be convinced that it's going to be able to, guarantee him Champions League football, for example.
Yeah, it's true, but it's even true that if you look the Serie A at the moment, you have Juventus and Napoli that are there on top, even if, again, Napoli yesterday, well, we don't talk about Napoli. But Inter is struggling. Milan, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's not in a competition anymore. Fiorentina is below Lazio. So there are not that many teams above Lazio. And if the Vrij stays, I believe Lazio can compete for the Champions League spot till the end of the season. So looking around, yeah, if you want to go to the Premier League, that's another discussion. Probably you're going for the money. But, you're not in a bad position playing at Lazio.
No, and I think also just the guarantee of being a key part of the team, which he clearly is a big selling point as well. But you'd like to see if if Lazio could sign a big player in January, which I know is very wishful thinking for Lazio, but if that could happen, make a statement of intent that this club is actually it's finally making progress and it's ready to take that step up. I wonder if that would have an influence on him at all as well. It's just hard to say, isn't it? Because there's been so many different stories about De Vrij's contract situation over the last 6 months, year, however long. So it's got to the point where it's just basically speculation about how he's actually thinking, feeling about it.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, Rami Algendi agree with you, saying Luis Alberto has been quiet for some games now. Time to bench him and start Felipe.
Yeah, well, like I was saying before, I think that's something I'd like to see definitely. I think SPAL is almost the ideal opportunity for that as well because it's it's not making as big a statement. If Inzaghi was to drop Alberto for tonight's game, that's making quite a big statement. Alberto might not be too happy about it, but against SPAL, it's an opportunity to play a weaker team and put Anderson in the team. And if Anderson gets into the team and scores a goal and puts in a good performance, then he can easily become first choice. But it's a great situation to be in of this kind of competition. And the good thing about Alberto as well is that he's capable of, Inzaghi's been very careful to give him opportunities this season in the midfield three as well. So I think Inzaghi intends to be able to use him there as well. So it's not necessarily just a one or the other situation. I think there's still opportunities for them both to play in the same team. But yeah, with Nani now is back as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how he rotates them.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if you noticed the face of Luis Alberto when he was coming off. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy at all. I don't know if it because of his performance or because he was sub, but he didn't look happy. He didn't make nothing bad or replying bad to the manager or something like that. But you can see in his face he was disappointed. But that's football. You play, you have chance to perform. If you don't, luckily Lazio now has option there, and I believe Luis Alberto needs a little bit of rest because he's been playing a lot more than anybody, especially at the beginning of the season. So he can be a little bit tired now.
Yeah, even in all the extra games, the Europa League games, the Cittadella, Coppa Italia, he's constantly in the team. So, but yeah, it's good to see. You want players who are wanting to be on the pitch because it shows they've got confidence. And yeah, he didn't look too happy about coming off. Neither did Milinkovic Savic for that matter. But it's the sign of a strong squad, and we'd rather be in a position where you can afford to actually take off these guys because you have alternatives to them. It's so rare for Lazio to actually have everybody fit is the one thing. So how long it will go on for? I mean, it would be classic bad luck really if we had everyone fit during the winter break when there's no games on, and then somebody gets injured just before the games restart again. But I don't want to jinx things.
Do you think tonight was the beginning of the 4-3-3 for Lazio with Immobile, Nani, and Felipe Anderson?
No, I'm still not convinced that there's going to be a formation change. I think Inzaghi's pretty convinced that this is the system he wants to play in, and that he can be versatile within this system. And there's various different ways he's lined up with a back three, but I think he does like the security of the back three. And something that stood out tonight was that I saw that Lazio have not conceded in the first 15 minutes of any game this season. And I think that says a lot. Although Inzaghi's team plays a very attractive style of football, he is also very he's pragmatic. He does want to set up a team that's not going to concede and make sure his team has a foothold in the game. He's not going to send them out, all guns blazing, trying to attack and score immediately. He's a very tactically minded coach, so I think he quite likes the back three because it gives his team more security, as well as quite a lot of flexibility as well. And actually, although Nani and Anderson are natural wide players, I think they're still going to be able to make a really important contribution within this narrower structure, I suppose.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting when I went to the Olimpico is looking at the movement of the defense when the other team has the ball. It's you can see that there is incredible synchro. It's like an orchestra moving. And as I said often, when Lazio play with a three central defender against a team attacking with three strikers, the wingers, let's call it like that, it's very, very important. So, for example, against Fiorentina and Crotone, sometimes Lazio defense was 4 men or 5 men, depending on how the other team was playing. And it was key, the fact that Lulic or Marusic were playing in the line with the defenders when the other team had the ball. And I think that was one of the problems Lazio had in the weeks before. Now the movements look better, and Marusic, for example, today was good in defense, not as good as I expected when Lazio was attacking. A couple of his cross was too slow and allowed Inter defenders to anticipate the striker. But the defense movement were great, and especially if you have the chance to go to the Stadio Olimpico, watch the movement of Lucas Leiva when the other team has the ball. I watched him against Fiorentina and Crotone, and especially against Crotone where he played, and he was already knowing where the ball was going, so he was always going there, forcing the defender to change option and give the ball to someone else, and slowing the attack of the opponent team. I think Lucas Leiva, it's really important for that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought he's another person who had a good game tonight actually as well. That's interesting what you say about seeing him in the stadium, because you do always notice different things, I suppose, don't you? You've got the ability to actually look all around the pitch instead of just where the camera's pointing. So I should hopefully be over in a couple of months actually for the Bologna game. So I'm looking forward to being able to see these guys in the flesh finally.
Good. Lucas Leiva today had even the chance to score. He missed it, but don't know. Was the man of the match tonight for you?
For me, I'd say it's Stefan de Vrij, for the reasons we've already discussed, I suppose. I think he was key to keeping the clean sheet. There's a lot of players who had good games tonight. If it's one of these things where actually I thought Lazio played a very good game actually, and if it had just been the case of Anderson converting that chance, then we'd be talking about a really satisfying win. Because I think overall the whole team performed pretty well. And actually, the kind of clunkiness that had come into the team after the international break on that bad run of form, that seems to have gone. So even though Lazio didn't score tonight, they've been looking a lot more fluid and a lot more kind of dangerous in the way that they were towards the start of the season. It's kind of encouraging to see that kind of understanding and those connections coming back after obviously such a disappointing run at that point.
Yeah. Inzaghi has spoken after the match, and he said the penalty, these are other 2 points that we don't have, and these are 7 considering what happened with Fiorentina and Torino. But I'm happy for the performance, but we should have won it. Tired. Inter was tired, but we played as well on Tuesday, so we were tired too. De Vrij, it's always a pleasure to train him. He's a great player. I'm hoping to have good news for his contract. Felipe Anderson, for us, is a great resource. He's coming back. He scored in the Cup and Serie A. So then from January, everybody will start playing more. So we're going to see. Shall we talk about the VAR?
Yes. Oh, I love talking about VAR. To be fair, tonight I actually thought it was the right decision in the end. You always get left with the I suppose the thoughts of if it had been the other way around, would it have been given as a penalty? But those aren't good thoughts to go down. I think the handball rule is just extremely confusing generally. So my initial thought was that it definitely was a handball because he'd brought his arm across his body to actually make contact with the ball. But on reflection, I'm not too angry about this decision.
No, I thought in real time I thought it was penalty. Then looking back, it wasn't a penalty. But again, this happens only with Lazio, you know. When it's on the other side, the VAR, the referee didn't call the VAR, etc., etc. So that's the most disappointed thing. That the decision today was correct, but never happens when it's in our favor. So that's the biggest disappointed thing. Yep. You wanted to say something?
Well, I suppose you just hope that at some point this season it's going to come to our benefit. I feel like Lazio, we've paid our dues by now in terms of having these decisions not go our way. So hopefully at some important moment in the season we're going to get a dodgy VAR decision coming our way, which would be quite nice. Hopefully in the derby.
Yeah, well, in the other derby didn't go that way, right?
No, so they always won.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I'm disappointed we didn't win. But Lazio played really well, and I don't believe that this is due because Inter is in a bad situation. I thought Lazio is playing really, really well. Has now back Felipe Anderson, Nani, Milinkovic-Savic is always there. Yes, Immobile and Luis Alberto probably are not in the best shape at the moment, but they are still playing a decent level. So Lazio can be really, really dangerous, and that's why it's a pity they didn't win today. But this is really encouraging. You know, often Lazio was coming to this point and start losing. So one thing I don't know. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, how do you feel about the winter break coming at this point then? Because I suppose we've got players like Alberto and Immobile, who you mentioned, who are probably going to be very grateful to have some rest. But at the same time, we finally got a squad that's looking fit and that's playing really well again. So in that regard, it's coming at quite a bad time. And obviously, the winter break's a lot longer than the international break was, but the international break was the last time we had a pause, and the team did not recover from that very well at all. So do you have any concerns about the timing of it at all?
Well, I always have concern, to be honest, when there's a break, because you don't know how the players will come back, how will they perform. But at the same time, there is Immobile, Luis Alberto that need to rest. But even players like Parolo and De Vrij, I believe, would love to have a little bit of rest because they're playing, especially Parolo, have played a lot. So giving a little bit of break, I think it was really good, really good. But one thing I was thinking during the match of tonight was thinking about last year. Lazio started really well against Inter, and then Marchetti started making mistakes, and Lazio lost. Tonight in the goal, there was Strakosha who made a couple of incredible saves. So, I was thinking, well, if Marchetti was playing tonight, probably would lose this. I'm too harsh?
Yeah, I think you're too harsh. I think Marchetti, for all his faults, I think he was a trait he shares with Strakosha is that he has very good reflexes, and he made a number of really good saves for Lazio. I mean, I remember when we got a 0-0 draw away to Juventus, it was basically just Marchetti that got us that point. I think Strakosha has. We've talked before about the number of saves he's made, which has been really impressive, and especially how difficult a lot of them have been. But the one thing that still concerns me with him is his distribution. I think his kicking is still pretty poor, and that was happening again tonight. Obviously, the famous example with him with the ball at his feet was that crazy incident against Juventus when he kicked it off Higuain off the crossbar into his hands again. But I think just generally his passing game is quite poor. He tried a lot of long balls tonight, which didn't hit the target. And when I say didn't hit the target, a lot of them were, quite some way away from the target. So he's a brilliant goalkeeper in terms of his reflexes. He dominates the area well. He makes good decisions. He knows when to punch and when to catch. But I think if we're going to pick him up on one small criticism, it would be that. I mean, in true Federico style, I've managed to actually find his statistics from tonight, and his passing accuracy from 25 passes was just 56%, which isn't good. So he's not the complete goalkeeper yet, I suppose, is the point I'm trying to make. He's very promising, but I think that's a part of his game that you can actually work on. I think the reflexes, that's quite an instinctive part of your game. So that's something you either have it or you don't. So I think he'll be able to actually work on his distribution and hopefully improve it, because it's something I've noticed a bit recently.
Wow, I'm impressed, because I would rate Strakosha one of the top 3 goalkeepers in Serie A right now. It's not only the reflex, it's the stop shot. It's the shot stopping that it's amazing.
But that's what I was saying. I completely agree with that. I think he is one of the best in terms of that and the way he controls his area. But I say if there is a weakness in his game, it's with his feet.
Okay. I think he's the goalkeeper who touches more the ball in terms of passing the ball. So
yeah, there is that as well, an element of the fact that Lazio are determined to play out from the back. And we saw that especially in the first half tonight, is that even when Inter are pressing really high up the pitch, they're always determined to find a way of passing it along the ground out. And something that does happen sometimes to Strakosha is that he's the last resort. So Bastos or Radu might send him the ball when they're under too much pressure. And in that case, Strakosha has no alternative but to clear it a long ball. And in that regard, you can't criticize him for it not being accurate. But it's more when he's actually got time to gather his thoughts and pick his pass, and quite often he's still not finding a Lazio play.
We have Kikito, superb performance. Thought everyone played well other than Luis Alberto. Special mention to Bastos, who showed why Inzaghi picked him. Parolo and Vrij also excellent. Anderson should start the next couple of matches. Even Nani did well. We talked about Anderson and Bastos. I don't know Alistair. I thought Parolo was exhausted. Instead, tonight again, another great performance. And at the end of the match, he recovered that ball. He ran all the pitch and tackled that Inter player. Now I don't remember the name. That was incredible. Thinking how many matches he played, how long he played there, and the timing. It was nearly end of the match. I thought he was destroyed. Parolo is surprising me every time.
He's an absolute machine, isn't he? I mean, that's always been one of the most impressive things of his game, is how much distance he covers, and he just never gives up. But I mean, he's obviously getting a bit older now. He's the wrong side of 30, so it doesn't you wouldn't notice with him with his work rate, but it probably will be a good thing to actually for him to have a winter break, like you said before, and actually stop running around so much for a little while.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But I had a tweet with Ben before the match and said, I'm a little bit concerned about Parolo because he should be tired and maybe Murcia could have started tonight instead of him, or put Luis Alberto there and start Felipe Anderson. But Inzaghi simply relied too much on Parolo, and I understand. He has experience. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He's good in defense. He's good in offense when teams try to attack. So he's he's a player that it's tough to bench him, even maybe to give him a little bit of rest. And I understand why. But as we were talking last time, doesn't this affect a little bit Murcia? Because I don't think Murcia can play in Lucas Leiva position. He's more a player like Parolo, but if Parolo always plays, then there's no space for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a discussion about this a few weeks ago, didn't we? And I think we kind of agreed on that. Is that I think in terms of Murcia's attributes, he's best suited to playing in a similar role to Parolo. So, yeah, I said at the time I was surprised that we haven't seen him come on as a substitute more often to actually give Parolo a bit of rest. But you can tell that Parolo, his experience, and obviously he's got leadership qualities as well as the vice captain. He's a very good player, and you can tell Inzaghi counts on him a lot, and seemingly doesn't really want to take him out of the team unless he has to. So you can tell he really values his contribution, which is basically the reason why at the start of the season I wanted him to be captain. But there you go. Don't want to bring up that argument again.
By the way, Lulic is retiring from international football, so he's going to play only for Lazio now. Happy?
Well, I'm not from Bosnia, so yes. If I was from Bosnia, I might feel differently. But it's a sensible decision. Probably, I think it must always be very difficult to come to these decisions because he won't be feeling like he's too old to be able to do both. I doubt it. But I suppose in order to be able to maximize your energy supplies, and particularly if you play in midfield like he does, maybe it's just a smart move from his part to actually try and decide where his priorities lie. And he's obviously a very committed Lazio player. He's the captain now, and it'd be nice to have him as fresh as we can. Because you know what, I mean, I haven't been in the last couple of podcasts, obviously, but he's really upped his game recently. He's someone we've criticised a fair bit this season because he's generally not been very good. But in the last couple of matches, he's put in a couple of really good performances and started to look back to his old best. So hopefully that continues.
Yeah, he listened to us, and that's why he started playing that well.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Lukaku? Because we always said, Lukaku should start, but every time he's starting, he didn't play that well. Against Crotone, he scored, but I didn't think he was his best performance. Tonight, again, he comes in, and for the first 5-10 minutes, he was amazing. I still regret he made that the cross wrong. Instead of putting it in the box, he passed it outside where there was nobody. But he can change the match with his speed, with his pace, with his power.
Yeah, he's starting to remind me in a strange way of the Keita from 2 or 3 years ago. In terms of being a player who's very good at getting himself into the right positions, but his end product is quite often disappointing. Whether it's, like you say, not picking out the right cross, or if his shots go off target or whatever it is, he's so powerful and fast, and that's a great attribute to his game. And in the same way that Keita used to be able to dribble through players, show amazing kind of pace and skill to get through defences, and then quite often when he was one-on-one with the goalkeeper, he'd miss his chance. Obviously, very very different players, but he's just starting to remind me of that trait a little bit. So that's I think with the way Lulic has been playing and the way that he's been playing, Lulic probably still just about deserves to be starting right now. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the Crotone one was a strange one, wasn't it? Because it was the first and second halves were kind of both sides of his game. I think he was actually quite impressive in the second half, but the first half he was making a lot of mistakes and not really having much of an impact on the game.
Sorry, I was unmuting. Yeah, against Crotone, I was really disappointed in the first half. I thought it was his worst match. So it's strange. It's strange because you think he has all this potential, and you were perfect. You're right comparing to the first Ketap, but for me today, all Lazio was like that. Doing really well, and then the final pass always wrong or not as well as expected, so that Immobile had to shoot from a very difficult position and things like that. That's what missed tonight Lazio. That's what Lazio is doing very often in the last matches. That's why Lazio's not performing as well as before, because always the last pass there's a mistake there or something wrong or something not done correctly, and doesn't allow Immobile, for example, to be in front of the goalkeeper all the time. So I think that's the biggest problem Lazio have at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, perhaps as an impact sub might be just what he's best at. It might just be that simple, which would be unfortunate because I think we were both quite excited about what he could do in that position at the start of the season. So I think if he's going to convince anybody of anything different, he's going to have to do it quite soon.
Well, again, he played well tonight, so it's encouraging. He has to do it for 90 minutes. That's probably the biggest issue, and I believe you agree with me. We were both thinking that it would have been more easy for Lukaku to be the starter than Marusic. Instead, it's happening the opposite.
Yeah. I don't think anyone expected Marusic to play so many games when he first arrived. Obviously, part of that's been that Bast has been injured, but he's not really. He's not really kind of a spectacular player in any way, Marusic, but he's quite reliable. He's not had too many games where he stood out as being particularly brilliant, but he's not had too many games where he's really made really bad mistakes either. I think and that kind of consistent level of performance is really what's kept him in the team. I'm kind of surprised that he's been staying in the team, once Basta got back from injury. I thought Basta would become first choice again once he was fully fit. So,
yeah.
But as a signing, and quite a cheap signing, who we didn't expect much from, it's been great that we've actually found a dependable player.
Well, it wasn't that cheap, 6 million euros for Lazio. I know you're used to Premier League and things like that, but for Lazio, it's quite an important signing.
I thought it was 4.5. I might have got that completely wrong.
I think it was 6, but. Can I say I'm a little bit disappointed? I'm happy because he improved a lot when he has to defend, and that was our biggest concern at the beginning of the year. But when he's attacking, I expect much more, and today he wasn't great when he had the ball and was in the Inter midfield. I expected more from him. Don't know if I'm asking too much. He didn't play bad, but especially in defense. But I expected something more from him.
Well, I think I've said this before, but I kind of wonder if, because to begin with, the big concern with him was his abilities as a defender. and now he's definitely improved defensively. But I kind of wonder if, as a result of a lot more attention being paid to his defensive abilities, if that's kind of maybe stopped or cut short his natural attacking instincts a bit, because in the kind of pre-season games and the games at the start of the season, he was really kind of fearless, wasn't he? He would drive forward and kind of drive at defenders and put in crosses and things, and we've not really seen that much of him recently. And it's the only thing I can think of really, is that he might have switched his focus to his defensive duties maybe even a bit too much, where ideally we want the right balance where we're getting both from him.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Who knows? Sometimes you're right. So it could be this time.
Not often.
No. Maybe it's only this time. But maybe we are asking too much. We are so happy about the performance that we're never satisfied, 100% satisfied. But it was a good performance, I think. And it's a shame we didn't win, but at the end we didn't lose, which is something that happened often for Lazio, right? Especially against Chievo or Genoa. We fight 90 minutes, we deserve to win, and at the end we lose. So at least we got 1 point. That's the good thing.
And I know, with all the trouble that we've had with Chievo over the years, what are they doing losing to Benevento? I mean,
it's incredible.
Congratulations to Danilo Cataldi and Lombardi finally getting their first win of the season.
I didn't see if Lombardi played tonight, but he was playing really, really well. Especially, I saw the Genoa match and he was playing. I thought he was the best on the field. So that was good to see for a Lazio player playing that well.
And one who's struggled. Yeah, just looked it up and he played 90 minutes. Lombardi. I didn't see the game, but he was in the team. So,
and Cataldi wasn't.
No.
That's why they won. No, I'm joking, obviously. But it's important to see that Lazio have all that many options. And we were talking a lot about Nani, will he be fit, etc. Today, it's true he didn't play that much, but I'm happy about his performance, and he brings that experience that maybe is missing there, because he played so many Champions League matches, high-level competitions and things like that Immobile, Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson doesn't have, so he can be really useful.
It was a shame that the timing of his injury, wasn't it? Because it was just at the point when you're starting to get an idea of what he can do, and now he basically has to do it all over again. You see it in flashes with him. I'm still not convinced by him. I think for me he would still be the third choice option behind Alberto and Anderson if it was between the three of them. But like you say, very experienced player, and someone who's capable of playing in a number of different positions as well. So, it's going to be interesting, I think, substitutions wise as well, to see if there's going to be a new trend with Inzaghi of doing what he did tonight and bringing on both of the kind of number 10 alternatives who are on the bench. Inzaghi's subs this season have been very predictable. The two wing backs and Caicedo, or some variation of that tends to be what he does. Whereas tonight, if he's looking to win games, it'd be interesting to see if he makes a habit of taking on both Nani and Anderson, or both Nani and Alberto, or whoever he has on the bench.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised that Felipe Anderson is already in good shape, like he was, and I want to see Inzaghi changing a little bit from the start. I want to see Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson playing together behind the Immobile, for example, because I think that gives an extra option to Lazio. not only bringing him from the bench in the second half. I want to see that variation even from the start, from the starting 11. So I'm curious. I'm really curious, and see what Nani can bring to this team.
And SPAL's going to be quite an interesting game for that because, you know, after the struggles we had against them on the opening day of the season, Inzaghi's not going to underestimate them in any way, and he's definitely going to want to attack them and make sure that they don't get a chance to you know, sit in and soak up pressure in the same way that they did back then. So yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, if the formation you suggested, for example, if he goes straight in from the start with something that attack minded, just to, because I think against a team like SPAL, it makes things a lot easier if you score early on. You know, if we manage to get the goal in the first half an hour or so, then that's going to fill the team with confidence and make things a lot easier. Whereas the further into the game it gets, the harder it becomes. So yeah, it'd be quite nice to see him line up with a very attacking team like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's really important to score immediately, and then the match will be more easier because SPAL has to attack as well to try to score back. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm curious to see if Inzaghi gonna make those changes and give Felipe Anderson a chance, or he wants to play Luis Alberto to give him the confidence after not very good performance. That's going to be interesting. What's your thought?
I fancy him to put Anderson in from the start, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's quite an intriguing one. I'm not convinced he will put Alberto and Anderson in the same team. I hope he does. I think it'd be very interesting, but I think there's a chance he might drop Alberto to the bench for that game. The thing is, as well, I suppose, when you talk about tired players and so on, and that maybe having an effect, it's unlikely to, because it's the last game before the break. So I think he'll know that if he can get another 90 minutes out of these guys, then it's fine because they've got time off afterwards. So that might play a part as well.
Okay, well, we're gonna see what happens in 7 days. Let's wrap it up here. Alistair, I hope you had a great Christmas and Happy New Year to you and to all our followers and our listeners all around the world. Thank you very much for joining us and follow this podcast. You can follow us on iTunes, on Spreaker, on YouTube. Subscribe, follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. And thank you very much for following us and give us all this great support. Thank you very much. Thanks, Al.
Cheers. Yeah, Happy New Year to you and to all our followers, like you just said. Hope everybody has a great time.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed and talk to you next year.
Yeah, speak to you then.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Come on, you eagles. There's no time to fear. Up there's an angel watching